So yes, our next panel discussion is on digital navigators. My name is Damar. I work at the PSC. Joining us for this discussion are Ms. Adele Edwards and Ms. Paulina Chavez. Paulina is an experienced digital inclusion advocate with nearly a decade in leading efforts to close the digital divide. She leads the programs team at Everyone On, which is a nationally recognized nonprofit promoting digital opportunity. Paulina has played a pivotal role in designing Everyone On's training programs, which are tailored to both organizations and communities. She has extensive experience collaborating with school districts, municipalities, nonprofits, and other stakeholders to develop strategies that drive internet adoption and digital upskilling. So if your organization has digital skills training needs, Paulina and her team are an excellent resource to tap into. Adele Edwards is the Chief Information Officer for the City of Racine. In 2022, she began convening the Digital Divide Roundtable, or DDR, which comprises nearly 60 social, economic, and educational institutions committed to closing the digital divide in their community. DDR meetings are an ongoing monthly affair and have facilitated connections and solutions within the community. Early last year, Adele initiated Racine's Digital Navigator program, strengthened through partnerships with DDR member organizations. Also in 2024, Adele spearheaded the development of the Racine Digital Equity Plan, and she is currently overseeing the implementation of a device distribution and digital navigation grant. Adele's efforts stand as a testament to the potential impact of municipalities as they turn their attention to the digital divide. And if you would, Troy, stop sharing here. We can feature Adele and Paulina. And to get us started, I'd like to start with maybe some conversation on getting started. Adele, one aspect of your digital navigator program, something that Gina alluded to in her opening remarks, is how you got started at the city. So you were initially hired, from my understanding, with the goal of spearheading a smart city initiative, which quickly turned into the digital navigator program you're running now. Could you tell us more about that? You are muted yet.
Sorry. Thank you, Damar. I have two jobs at the city. One is I oversee all the city's IT equipment, and the other is I'm in charge of smart city initiatives. When I was hired, I was new to Racine, so I hired part-time students to help me understand the city, and I found that the digital divide was an issue. 27.5% of households did not subscribe to broadband internet service at home, and over 10% of the households solely relied on mobile data plans. And 2,300 City of Racine households, about 7.5%, do not have home computing devices. How could we call ourselves a smart city if not everybody could access or know how to use a computer? So I started by contacting local schools and asking them if they saw a digital divide in Racine, and the organizations around them also said yes, and they all wanted to reduce it. So we created the Digital Divide Roundtable. It's made up of mainly nonprofits that provide services to the covered populations. So that's low income, incarcerated, veterans, those with disability, and those with language barriers, and members of racial and ethnic minority groups. As a city, we have no one residing in rural areas. Using ARPA funds, the city researched different options available for curriculum and determined which skills were important for individuals to learn. We used NDIA's resources. For those of you who were here at the beginning, they talked about a lot of the things that they have, and they have been a great resource for the city because this is brand new work to me. I partnered with an IT instructor at Gateway Technical College, which is located in Racine, to review our syllabus and created a list of 31 essential digital literacy skills to be learned. Once digital navigators were hired, they participated in training delivered by Everyone On. Paulina actually helped with that, to learn about different training resources and better understand the digital divide in Racine. Trainers initially made their own lessons plans and would practice teaching each other the material. They also later created lessons on cybersecurity and telehealth, and they learned how to steer conversations to keep students on track with the lessons. Trainers would role play through challenging scenarios to help them learn more about how to handle different situations, particularly practicing conflict resolution. We found that digital, as a resource for us, we found North Star digital literacy curriculum met the needs of online training, and our trainers were given access to the material through the Racine Literacy Council. Again, another DDR member was willing to allow us to use that curriculum. Our digital navigators also use products like Digital Learn, GCF Global, and typing.com to supplement our curriculum.
Awesome. Thank you, Adele. And you had noted that Paulina actually came in to help bring your program online. Paulina, can you talk to us about some of the considerations that go into the development of like a train the trainer program?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to uplift something that I haven't heard too much said explicitly, but I think is important to say here is that many entities that are looking to digital navigator programs have probably already been doing digital navigator services, even if they're not necessarily calling that, especially given the pandemic and some of the schools and nonprofits that Adele, for example, mentioned that we're likely already interfacing with community members and providing tech support. That's digital navigation services. So it doesn't have to feel like this brand new thing that you're kind of exploring. You likely just can tailor what you've already been doing for community to kind of fit, work with the model. So as an organization, everyone went on, we have a number of train and trainer programs, and specifically our digital navigator training program, like the one that we delivered in Racine with Adele and the digital navigators there, really focuses on providing a foundation around the issue of the digital divide for participants. So I remember we did a data walk, like what do the numbers say right now? And what are the implications of these numbers? Like where are these numbers coming from? What are the different circumstances that impact the data, right? We all know that data collection is an imperfect tool that we all use, right? There was a little bit of a conversation around that during the grants panel earlier as well, right? But wanting to give those digital navigators a general understanding of what's happening locally at the state level, wherever possible, and even nationally. It's always good to just be informed about what's happening at a macro level. But then we also generally then dive into what are the available digital inclusion resources. So you're looking into your libraries, your local community college systems, for example, to also how to develop an outreach plan, sharing best practices that we in our organization, our staff has learned in the field on teaching basic digital skills, and what that looks like in being in community. Ultimately, each organization, each situation will be very different, but we always aim to provide a good starting point that will equip folks with enough knowledge to get their program up and running, as we did in Racing.
Excellent. Thank you, Paulina. I could see my video was choppy. Is my audio okay now?
I would say so.
Thank you. Thank you, Paulina. So then I understand in addition to the train the trainer programs, everyone else on also provides direct digital navigation services in the communities that you work in. And we have, I know that you guys have a bit of a different structure between how you staff your programs. So Paulina, could you talk to us about staffing considerations?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually hire, and for our digital navigator work in Milwaukee and Waukesha counties, we'll be looking to hire independent contractors in those regions. It provides us the flexibility to support our program partners and when we need to deploy those folks out in person. But we also contract out with another organization, actually Human IT, who had a panelist on the previous one, for that have a full call center for remote digital navigator services as well.
Excellent, thank you. That's a great way, I think, to support the community, hiring folks to work with those, work with their neighbors effectively. And then Adele, you mentioned that you hire students. Um, what are some of the considerations that you make as you're looking to hire folks to provide digital navigation services?
So we do hire students, part-time college students, to do digital navigation. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is we have three different educational organizations nearby, and so there's a large group of them. Also, they don't cost as much as people who are out of school generally, and so the students get paid. And a lot of them can often get college credit for the work they're doing. The city's the one who has been doing this work, so we follow the hiring rules of the city. And the city is very committed to hiring a diverse range of employees to help connect with our learners. The things that we look for when we hire digital navigators is that the people have some sort of teaching experience. And that teaching experience, I mean, one woman that we hired, she would teach in her church, the kindergartners and things like that, and some of the other members of her church. Other people taught their family computer skills and stuff, and it wasn't necessarily computer stuff that we were asking for. We just wanted them to know how to talk to people and teach them new things. We also were very interested in cultural awareness and sensitivity, and we wanted to make sure they had strong time management skills, because our program is one-on-one training. We really hold people's hands for a really long time to teach this and make sure that they really understand it. And so being able to arrive on time and leave on time and things like that were vital. And then we also were very interested in good communication skills, not only during the training, but being able to communicate with others when people said, "So what are you doing here? I don't understand." That was also very important to us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adele. And so you've got your digital navigators hired, you've got them trained, upskilled. So where do you start then with a new learner?
So we begin with skill and goal attainment. So when we started our program, we actually used ARPA funds for it. And so I had no idea what I'm doing. Again, this is brand new work to me and all the people that I'm working with. So we're kind of figuring out on our own. Of course, doing research and using NDIA and other resources like everyone on to help upskill us. But we really want to know where the learner is. And so we take time to gauge their current digital literacy capacity, whether they have no prior experience or some level of familiarity, and then ask them directly about what are their goals, what are their interests. We had one woman that had a job and she kind of knew what she was doing with the computer, but she wanted to do more. She didn't like the fact she really didn't understand what she was doing and thought she could do more. And so knowing that and knowing that she wanted to learn those specific skills so that she could get a better job, that's what we concentrated on. And in the end, she ended up leaving her job and getting a better job. So knowing where the person was really important to us. This pre-assessment basically of the person also helps us tailor our experience so they're both relevant and achievable to the learner. It's not that we don't have a whole list of things, but sometimes, this isn't college where people are coming in and here's your course curriculum and you must follow it. We're really trying to change people's lives, and for changing people's lives, sometimes it's different from one person to the next. So by meeting the people where they are and then building forward, we're better equipped to offer the right resources and pacing from the start. And that's kind of how we approach that.
That's wonderful. That is excellent. Thank you, Adele. Paulina, do you take a similar approach? So in your direct services that you provide, or even from an capacity building, train the trainer perspective, do you take a similar approach?
Yes and no. Similar in the sense that we also do a pre-assessment. We also want to meet each participant where they're at. But we do take a slightly different logistical approach. So for most of our actual digital navigator services, they're delivered ad hoc. So a person will reach out to us with a specific request to learn a skill or want to do, complete a form or so on and so forth. And so it'll be very tailored to what they're asking for. However, as an organization in Milwaukee County, for example, and future in Waukesha as well, we'll be doing actual proper full digital skills training classes. So we bring about 15 adults together. We do a lot of work with partner organizations to recruit individuals and give them the heads up that it is an introductory class. You need to be at a kind of no experience to very little experience level to really get a lot out of the class and kind of go through that cohort experience, that classroom experience. We'll meet with them a few hours a week, anywhere between 1 to 2 hours a week for a number of weeks. We've gone up to, I think some of our longest classes have gone up to 8+ weeks given the population. So for example, a class of senior citizens, elder adults is going to need more time with them to learn the basic skills versus someone who maybe has some familiarity with computers or is looking to upskill enough to change jobs, as Adele mentioned, right? So it just really depends. And we will work with our program partners to tailor our curriculum, our program management to fit those participants.
Wonderful. And I think that assessment is important as well in the beginning, both to gauge where they're at, to meet them with with the needs that they have, but then also to assess the effectiveness of your program, to see if your digital navigators are making the impact that you intend. All very, very good points. Thank you. Moving on to our next questions. Paulina, you had mentioned meeting with folks. So the trainings that you have coming up in Milwaukee, meeting with folks a few hours weekly for a number of weeks. Adele, how frequently or how often do your digital navigators engage with folks, like coming back to the same individuals or same groups?
So our goal is to meet with learners at least once a week. Now, again, similar to what Paulina said, we partner with our DDR members. And so, as I mentioned, we have DDR members who support all the different covered populations. And so we try to meet with each of them once a week, but there are several classes that learners can attend outside the once a week parameters if the students are willing and available. We train at our Digital Divide Roundtable member locations, the library and the community center. So some of the training we do at the library and the community center is more similar to what Paulina mentioned, a kind of a walk up. Hey, I'm having a problem with my phone. Hey, I've got this one thing I want to learn. Kind of a quick and dirty, let me get you past your barrier and then move on, where the other ones are really a long-term engagement. In most of the locations, we have weekly meetings for about 2 hours. And in some, we actually have classes that meet multiple times per week. So it just varies the location, capacity, and the number of students we have. And I mentioned the pop-up lessons on specific topics if we have requests. So, for example, we provided 3 different classes for a veterans group on using phones and cybersecurity. So, they got all the veterans together, met in a room, then we came and provided the classroom training, went around and helped everybody on it. And then, a month later, we kind of did the same thing, different subjects. So those are some of the things and how we often meet with our different learners.
And Damar, if I can just add real briefly, actually, we, as part of our programming, we aim to provide a device, and so that makes a huge difference in our ability to be able to meet with them on a structured schedule, because then they'll have a device that we've provided for them to continue to learn on. And so we know that that's not usually the case for a lot of places. Devices are a huge part of our budget because of that. So as a whole, we don't serve as many people as others would if you only focus on the training, partly because we understand that there is such a high need for devices right now. We did a national report in 2022, I think it was, that found that most, a good chunk of low to middle income households, which was about 55,000 dollars per year or less, could not afford even up to $100 for a computer. And so I don't know when the last time you saw $100 device anywhere in a market. I haven't, right? And so we know that that's still a huge need and continues to be a barrier, just as Adele has mentioned many times. And so that's partly one of the reasons why we have those structured classes, programs, and partnerships so that we can provide them those devices and we know they're going to be able to learn how to use them.
And if I could just follow on with that, I was just going to mention that. So our initial work we've done with ARPA funds, and the ARPA funds didn't have the funding that Paulina was talking about for devices. So all of our training has been, if you had a device, great. If you didn't, you can learn some things. We're really excited because we did get the grant, the Digital Connectivity and Navigators grant, where we're going to be handing out devices. So our structure has had to change to a different format with the devices as well as the specifics for the grant.
Those are all very, very excellent points. Good insights. The note about the cybersecurity cell phone safety course for aging folks, it hits me in particular at this moment. I have my grandparents are we're taking caution with our grandparents and their use of their internet enabled devices. Thank you. Sorry, let me refine my place in our questions here. There's a very, very good dialogue you guys had going. And so as you're excited with the device distribution program, Adele, have you seen any sort of demand or an interest in or considered offering virtual training with the programs as you get devices out into folks' hands? Is this something that you've looked at or?
We have talked about it internally, but a lot of the people that we work with, and especially with the new grant, are low income, and so we want to make sure we're attending to their needs. And our experience has been that a lot of people need a lot of hand holding. And so if we get to the point, the nice thing is with the online classes and people having their own devices, they can now take the device home and do North Star, which is an online course online, and then contact us and stuff. So we're thinking about that, but we haven't done anything like Paulina has.
Gotcha. And then yes, Paulina, you have some more experience in offering virtual trainings. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What has the engagement been there?
Absolutely. So as an organization, I always think it's funny, but it's not. It was really challenging at the time, but we actually had launched our digital skills training program at the beginning of 2020. So it was developed originally as an in-person program to teach digital skills, and then the pandemic, shut everything down in March of that year. And so we very quickly had to decide whether or not we wanted to pivot to a virtual program, and we did. We did pivot, and granted, it takes a lot of coordination on the front end with partners, especially in our case, we primarily work with partner organizations, right, or entities, to coordinate all the logistics of getting devices into the hands of people who are going to be taking the classes. So for example, I remember in 2020 and 2021, we were shipping devices directly to people's homes. Just because it was just not safe, of course, for us to come together. While that changed a little bit towards the end, I remember holding some tech support days outside, in person, social distanced. So there were ways to get around it. Now, obviously, to Adele's point, in person is certainly the preferred ideal modality of instructions for novice learners. But certainly, I do think there's still a demand both for digital navigation services and skills training. We often see it from older adults, actually, but specifically those who do not have transportation to go to an in-person location, or maybe have mobility issues. So it's just they just physically cannot get to a location to go in person for support. There's also now immigrant communities that are not comfortable leaving their homes, but are still high in need. Veterans, folks who are used to going to um, uh, used to getting services in the home, so like every different population of the covered populations that we're looking to, there will always be some sort of kind of intersection where folks might not be able to go. Even, similar to how Adele mentions that they work a lot with their DDR partner organizations, the ones we work with. Sometimes they don't have a physical location that you can bring folks into. Sometimes, again, transportation, maybe it's in a part of town that is just not really easily accessible via public transportation. Folks would have to walk or drive there, and that's not reasonable for everyone on a consistent basis. And sometimes even the broadband connection itself. You're having broadband issues today. The internet can be so unreliable unexpectedly for many different reasons. And in our modality of programs, we're bringing together probably anywhere between 15 to 20 learners in the same room, all connected to the same internet connection. And sometimes that's just too much. The network connectivity is not enough, doesn't have enough bandwidth to support and have everybody be able to do what they need to do online. And so for those reasons and many others, sometimes the participants will really ask us to prioritize doing a virtual class. We might perhaps bring them in person we do what we call a device distribution at the beginning, where we actually bring them together to unbox the devices that we provide for them and help them kind of go through the setup process, because those are all digital skills as well. And so they'll do that in person and then take them home, as Adele mentioned, take them home and then kind of continue on either self-paced or with a structured curriculum program that we've developed in partnership with an organization.
Is my audio clear? Can you hear me? That was wonderful, Paulina. Thank you very much. You dug into some unique barriers that virtual trainings are particularly well suited to overcome. As far as transportation, the connection itself, as my video is maybe frozen for you or bouncing around. My voice is clear enough. Uh, Adele, are there any unique barriers that you've encountered that maybe don't get enough attention or are otherwise worth highlighting?
Transportation can be an issue. Also, just people get busy, and so that's another thing that we've had is people have great intentions, and sometimes that falls off. But we found that teaching our trainers how to be empathetic and coaching success and being excited. Hey, you got that one right. That's really, really good. Let's see you do it again on this thing. Can really help people really engage with the trainer. A lot of the people we have are first time using a computer. And so having the students gain confidence in their digital skills and encouraging them to practice online is really helpful. And so, it helps build that trust and comfort, especially for those who are new to technology and already concerned that they don't know how to use it.
Thank you, Adele. That personal connection, I think, is really important. I think that's something that maybe cannot be stressed enough. Having that motivation, because there is, I think, often there can be a stigma associated with just a lack of knowledge in any area, but in particular using technology where it's everywhere now in the world. So yeah, having that personal touch and helping folks overcome potential sense of stigma. Moving on, let's talk about some training programs. Or training materials, training resources. Adele, you noted that you found North Star to be a good resource for your team in digital skills training. And you mentioned that North Star can actually be used for self-guided trainings. One of the potential benefits of having devices, being able to get devices into folks' hands. Within your current training program, how much of that is sort of self-guided and how much is directly directly taught by the navigators?
So again, with the ARPA work that we've done historically, it depends on the needs of the user. We were able to do whatever kind of the person wants. With the new grant, it's going to be a lot more restrictive because we have goals that we need specifically to meet in training. And so the North Star is just one of the tools that we use. It actually has a cost to it. There are other online models. We like it also because it has the ability to be in Spanish and in English, and that's important for a lot of our learners. But our digital navigators act as guides if we're using North Star often, and offer support when the learners can't navigate the lessons by themselves. Most of the training is facilitated by our digital navigators, even when the learners are technically engaging with the self-guided platforms, just to be a support there. We found that many of our students still need support through the process, from navigation and comprehension to staying motivated, as I mentioned. And now that we're working with the structured curriculum, and really making sure that, you know, people attend to meeting specific training goals, you know, and can use the computer, for example, and those types of things. We're shifting more to a supportive guide and stepping in only when needed. But again, it depends on the individual. A lot of this, just like your teacher at school, you know, the teacher has to adjust to the individuals that are learning. They can't just be a robot up there just saying, you know, how to do their algebra. People will get lost. And so it's the personal touch. And I know that Pauline does that online with her programs. It's, you know, and you get to know the people, and they're so appreciative of the time and the learning that they're getting and the ability to go forward in life. So that's really what's a lot of people who are doing digital navigation work really like. I've had people come back, I never thought I was going to do this, but I really like this work.
That's great. That is really wonderful. The work truly is rewarding, and that is nice to hear. I like that you mentioned the multilingual support as well. Um, that is a key. You noted previously cultural awareness, cultural competency, and sort of sensitivity to where others might be, and offering that, making that personal connection. Um, Paulina, how are your trainings structured? Do you have, I understand you have some of your own self-developed curriculum. Do you utilize North Star or um, digital literacy, any other tools?
All of the above. To your point, we have our own basic skills curriculum that we developed in 2020, and actually we just redesigned it to be even more to be even easier for participants to kind of follow along. Lots of big graphics, big pictures. You know, we're often working with folks who can't see, you know, 11-point font on a page or on a screen, right? So the accessibility factor is also important here with regards to our basic skills curriculum. But wherever it makes sense, all of our instructors are encouraged to leverage publicly available resources like North Star, like Goodwill, GCF Learn, the Google Digital Skills Curriculum, Microsoft Basic Office 365. All of the publicly available resources are often brought in as, hey, you know, our class and our funding only covers X amount of time, but as you look to continue to engage and learn more skills, here are some other available resources that you can continue to use. We generally meet with participants anywhere between 10 to 12 hours, as I mentioned earlier, but over usually a number of weeks. So we've done, I think, our more traditional session, we call them cohorts. Our more traditional cohorts are about 2 hours a week for about 6 weeks. That the including of the device distribution, where we give them the devices at the beginning to use for the rest of the program. Sometimes, depending on the population, we'll do like 2 4-hour sessions for 8 hours of training, you know, plus the device distribution, you know, so there's a lot of different modalities that we use. But that's all, again, very customized to the partner, to the population, to the objectives of the classes. We build our classes to have kind of like a lecture facilitated presentation on what the skill is that you're trying to teach the learners in that moment, but also office hours where you're just there practicing. You know, digital skills is a very tactical skill. Like, you can't just learn by listening and hearing someone talk about it. You need to put your hand on the keyboard and, you know, on the track iPad and learn how to use it. And so we build in time for participants in our classes to just sit there and practice. And, when we've done it virtually, we'll have them share their screen. So that's usually the first skill we'll teach them. Share your screen so that we could see where your cursor is moving, how you're kind of getting to each of these different skill sets. So there's a number of different tools that we've used. And to Adele's point, our curriculum is currently available in English, Spanish, Punjabi. We actually just translated into Punjabi, and we're in the process of translating it to Chinese. But one of our core tenets of equity is just making sure that if there is a population where we don't currently have that language support, we will work with a partner to bring together a class that's ready to move forward as soon as we get that translated. And we build it into our budget wherever possible so that we have that flexibility and be able to reach those communities that are often not being able to be served. Most of digital skills resources are in English. And so you're primarily only going to see folks who can engage with that, who speak English. And if you don't speak English, then you're already kind of, that's another barrier that is being added to their ability to learn digital skills.
Thank you for those insights, Paulina. So we had talked about so multilingual support or potential language barriers, and we had talked about transportation. And you noted just now, Paulina, tailoring sort of the length of classes, the structure, how often you're meeting throughout the week, how long each individual meeting might be. What are some other ways that you tailor lessons and training to the specific group, the population that you're working with?
Trying to think of different populations. So, if we're working with a group that is looking to upskill and workforce development, kind of improve their workforce skills, we'll integrate sessions on resume building, how to do a job search. I feel like those are things that people expect everyone to know how to do, right? But a lot of folks that come to us and to our partners are used to knocking on doors, going in person and asking just folks if they have a job. And it's very different in today's age to do a Google search of, jobs in Racine, Wisconsin, might give you a lot of different results that aren't actually accurate. There's a lot of paid prioritization happening on search engines nowadays. There's a lot of AI that's being used, right? That was mentioned earlier today as well, that gives the impression that things are available when they might not be, and there's a high level of digital kind of skills needed to be able to kind of look through the responses and be like, this actually is not what I'm looking for. This doesn't apply and whatnot. And so we tailor it based on the different populations. Like we're primarily serving, I think, for example, 97% of our participants are women. And so sometimes we're looking to provide examples that make sense for them in terms of managing their family finances, managing their children's education. As Adele mentioned this at the top of our panel, like what is important to each person or what's important to each group of people that you're serving, because that's going to be the hook that's going to get them to want to come back and continue to stay engaged with our program with the digital navigators and really kind of set them up for success in terms of this is the beginning of their digital skill learning journey. Because if it has a direct impact on something that's important to them, they're going to want to stay engaged with it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paulina. Adele, do you have anything you would like to add?
Just wanted to mention when we were talking about culturally appropriate things, we actually spend a lot of time. I got some statistics around the city of Racine. We're 50% white, 23% Hispanic, 20% Black, and the rest is mixed. 18% live in poverty. Our median household income is only $55,705 as of 2023. 27% are under 18 and 14% are over 65. 4% are veterans. And so going back to that kind of, making sure we're meeting the people where we are is we educated our trainers on like different potential life struggles of the potential learners, including understanding cultural awareness, how to work with people in the community that may be different and have different experiences from the trainers. Different forms of trauma and empathy that they needed to be prepared to understand and work with the people in appropriate ways. Um, you know, we trainers started by getting to know the community they serve. Now, granted, most of ours are actually from the community that they serve. But we also went over with them their values, communication styles, any barriers they may face assessing technology. Because again, all of the trainers well, most of the trainers I have are college students, but a lot of them actually are returning college students. So we've got a variety of ages in there. But we intentionally chose tools and platforms that are familiar. Going to Paulina's point, um, examples from the local businesses and community events or social media platforms that they use, making sure that the training that we do resonates with learners, using visuals, like she said, in language that are inclusive and reflective of the diverse population we serve. Our goals are to create a learning environment that feels familiar, safe, and empowering so that every one of the learners feels seen, respected, and capable of growth. And we use different ways to do that, but that's some of the things that we really try hard. And I know Pauline does the same thing with her programs.
I was going to say that, yeah, I was going to add to what Adele said. We hire directly from the communities we're serving. So we're looking to our partners to help refer folks to us for our independent contractors who serve as digital navigators and digital skills instructors. Primarily, we've actually been very successful in getting like staff members who are like looking for extra pocket change or wanting to continue to support the communities they're already serving. Especially right now is a very tough economic and job climate where there are a lot of folks looking for some spare, some additional funding in their pockets. And so everything that Adele said though is right on the money too. Hiring from the local communities, really providing them the understanding if they don't already have it. But that's I feel like that's relatively rare in our instances. Like folks understand the digital divide has impacted either them or someone in their family directly, and so they understand why this work is important. One other thing too that I just want to highlight I feel like it goes in line with cultural competency a little bit, but patience, like that's one of the things that we also look for with when we're hiring folks to join our roster of instructors and digital navigators. We can teach you how, what the demographics and how to consider communities and whatnot. But if you don't have patience to kind of sit there with someone and help understand the same thing over and over to them, then they might not be very successful in this type of role. And so that's something that is not necessarily something that can be taught, but people surprise you. But that's one of the main things that we also look at in terms of cultural competency. As a Latina woman, am going to identify, and a Latino person participant is going to identify much more with me than perhaps with someone else. But if I don't have patience for that, for them to teach them, which just it wouldn't work out, right? And so that's kind of part of this whole thing that we want to ensure that folks feel comfortable because they're in a very vulnerable position coming to our organizations, our resources to say, I don't know how to do this. We work a lot with folks who maybe perhaps didn't have formal schooling. And so to come in and say, as an adult, I need help, and I can't figure it out on my own. It puts people in a very vulnerable position, and we want to kind of help mitigate that, help them feel comfortable and secure that all of our team members are going to, understand why, that there might be other situations or um, other ways that life has impacted their ability to learn these skills, and that's okay. We can all learn. We can all start somewhere, and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you. It's patience and motivation starting to sound a lot like parenting. Um, so very, very good points on cultural awareness, cultural competency. As folks come in the door, understanding where they're coming from, roughly, or even if not, being open and approaching them in a proper way. Very, very good points, good insights. How do you guys get folks in the door? So when, I mean, we've talked somewhat about the stigma and the vulnerability, folks coming in. How do you get them to come to you with these needs?
Well, for us, the device has been a really big incentive, other than just, being able to help folks learn a skill or learn something that they need to do. For example, if you're on social services, you need to fill out food stamp application. That's an online form more not more than ever now. And so like there are some specific, as we were talking about, there's some specific reasons people reach out to us, but then the computer in our program that we give to them and they get to keep if they've, reached a certain minimum number of hours they've worked with us is a huge incentive again because it's just such an expensive piece of equipment that most families can't afford to buy on their own, or they can't afford multiple of them because there might be multiple children, multiple adults in the home that need access to a device. And so that's been a really big driver of folks coming to us is because we provide that device as the incentive.
And we work very closely with our Digital Divide Roundtable members, and basically, as they're already serving the population that we want to help, they already have the people who need that extra work. So we come in, and as Paulina said at the beginning, there are a lot of people that are already doing this work. So we're just providing often some extra capacity and capabilities that they might not have, extra warm bodies even, to train the people in these skills. So we rely on the DDR members mainly, and then do social media marketing, flyers. We've got some organizations that go door to door, things like that, just to try to make sure people are aware of what we have at like the community centers.
I'll just quickly add, that's exactly, thank you, Adele, for mentioning. I wanted to mention it earlier and I forgot that like the trust that folks have in some of these established organizations is huge. Like, unfortunately, not too many people know who Everyone On is and that we're a digital inclusion organization. But if they say they see that we've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Racine to work together and provide this resource, we're able to tap into the trust that they have into these established organizations and provide them the resource. They might not otherwise come to us in our case, might not come to us to get information or even just find out. But if they hear that the Boys and Girls Club has, to some extent, or any organization has vetted the partners, right? So have they worked with the Dell and they know that the effort out of Racine is a legitimate one? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of scams around internet connectivity devices that people pull out there, right? And so if they feel like the trust that they have in their local anchor institutions is well received and that they're partnering with someone else, then they're going to feel comfortable in attending and kind of going in to find out more information or using those resources. So that trust factor is really huge.
Excellent. Yeah, as Troy noted, trust is a key point, one of the values in the Wisconsin State Digital Equity Plan that we are looking to further. I think we've seen both from your experiences and what you two have shared, and then even in the past panel, that partnerships and those collaboration is very important to success. I will note we've got a good number of questions and a bit of dialogue in the chat. I will note the resources that Adele and Paulina have referenced. Those will be shared, so they will be included in the slides, which will be shared out following the event. So we will share the resources that we have referenced here in the discussion. See, I'm getting choppy again. I apologize, and thank you for your patience.
Since one of the recent
Yeah.
questions that came up was a request to share position descriptions, I know that Sean Steen of DataNet inserted a link to one of those, and I myself dropped in a Digital Navigator baseline job description from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Damar, are you still with
Troy.
us? You want to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems like you cleared up. Let's be optimistic.
Perfect. Good. I hope so. Thank you, Troy. Yes, so I'll make sure as folks are sharing resources as well in the chat, I'll make sure to go through and capture those and include them with what we have in the slides already. So we'll capture everything for you. With that, we are at 10:02. We've got 5 minutes before we hit our scheduled 5-minute break. We can run over that if needed, but let's start getting to some questions. If anyone, any of our other facilitators has one handy to rattle off. I am
Yep.
otherwise scrolling up
Yep.
to
There's one in the
5.1.
chat. For Paulina, what kind of devices are you talking about um, in
Yeah.
the to your programs?
Great question. We, depending on the funder, and the grant, it all depends on the budget. So primarily we have used Chromebooks. We have found that it works really well for novice learners since there's not too many different software and too much functionality to start. And they're just much cheaper overall for our use. But in Wisconsin, for example, we're actually transitioning over to Windows-based devices given, especially we also are a GCN recipient this year. So there's also specific grant guidelines that indicate that the devices must be able to be used when not connected to the internet, which Chromebooks are generally not. Like they're not that they're completely useless, but Chromebooks are much more useful when connected to the internet versus Windows devices can be used even though they're not connected to the internet. So we're going to be doing that. But we primarily focus on Chromebooks and Windows devices versus some other organizations use tablets or smartphones. And that's all great. It's just we are looking to bring folks on to learning how to use Chromebook laptops, basically.
Perfect. Thank you. And another question that we have, I believe this will be for you as well, Paulina. What type of contract do you set up with the independent digital navigator contractors? Do you have a template that you'd be willing to share?
We do have a template. I'd be happy to share maybe, and tomorrow, I don't know, we can coordinate on details if I send it to you to send out to everyone, or we can pass along my information for folks to reach out directly if that's a need for them. But essentially what our contract stipulates is, and we're actually we have an onboarding for some new instructors and digital navigators tomorrow where their contract stipulates that they're joining a roster of contractors and digital navigators so that whenever there is a class or an event or situation available where we need digital navigator or instructor support, we will put a call out to that roster and see who is available. And so that provides us the flexibility to offer a wide range of times and days that our folks are available, and also provides our instructors and digital navigators the flexibility to fit it into their personal schedules. Like I mentioned, right now there's a lot of folks looking for new jobs and looking to switch their part-time to full-time, and so while that happens they can choose to sign on to support a class, sign on to provide digital navigator services during an event at a time that works for them. So we do kind of stipulate those pieces in the contract. And I know there was a question around like cost. Because it isn't a full-time or even a part-time position, we do pay more per hour for those services. I think we're about $35 per hour right now. But again, because it's limited time bound engagements that they are opting into versus a consistent commitment across a certain amount of time.
Thank you, Paulina. A similar question for you, Adele. Would you be willing to share what the pay rate is for your digital navigators? How long do they stay with the program? How long and intensive is the training for the navigators?
So I put that in the chat. We pay about $20 an hour. The part-time students, it's based on the city's pay rate. For similarly skilled people, we train them up ourselves. And so a lot of it's almost to train the trainer. The first group of people we actually still have them from last year when they started and got trained by everyone on. And so we train some of those skills. And then we also train some other learnings that we've had just about working with our community and things like that. And then what was the third question?
How long and intensive is the training? And then how long do they stay with the program?
Well, so far, we started it last summer, so we still have a lot of them with us. Some had to leave, so because they're students, some of them just did it during the summer, but we've had a lot that have stayed on. So they can stay as long as they want. And then the extent of the training we do, we get a certain place and then they get mentored. And so the trainer sits with an experienced trainer for a while they go in and do some of the trainings, and then they get to go on their own. So that's kind of how we make sure that people feel confident. We also have a weekly meeting of all of our digital navigators, to go over what their experience that week, basically, whoever they met, what questions that they get that they didn't know how to answer, and then they support each other. If somebody's been asked to write a PowerPoint presentation for maybe one of the veterans groups to show them some new learning, they often work together on that and then give each other feedback. So it's become a very nice little group of people that self-support each other.
Nice. Awesome. That's impressive. Laudable that you have that set up. And I think those students sticking on year over year, as you mentioned, they like the work. It definitely says something. Our next question, how does a lack of availability and affordability of broadband internet in Racine impact your work?
So since we have a decent amount of it, we're very excited to be able to get the devices and hand those out because that's a major need. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have a device, so why would I learn something? So we're really excited to be able to start filling that gap. But we still have the gap of affordable internet. We have two different providers, AT&T and Spectrum Charter here in Racine. And so both organizations do have low income plans, but for some, of course, those are still not large enough. And so a lot of the organizations, the DDR organizations, allow people to, if they're going there for a service, they can use one or two of their computers. And then we also have a library that people can go to. We provided maps online to show where the different community centers are, where the trainings are, where the bus routes are in reference to that. So people can see that, they can hop on a bus to get to a lot of these places. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make it easier to get people to where there is free internet. We have a map of all the free internet locations within the city. So we're trying to do a variety of things to help spread the word of, if you don't have it in your house, there are places that you can go. Is that the greatest solution? No, but at the moment, that's the solution that we can offer people. And it's at least something to give them the information of where they could go.
Yes, certainly. That is, I think, a great resource that you have. Putting the bus routes on the map to your training locations. That'll be the last question. We are running into our break time now. Thank you both for a very wonderful discussion. Lots of excellent insights.